Everybody should be on. It is 1 o'clock, and my name is Hal Runkle, and I'm thrilled to be with you all for another webinar, scream-free webinar. And I love this topic. We're going to talk about teenagers, which long before I had teenagers, I loved teenagers, and my wife did even more. She has taught high schoolers for over 20 years. And I think we all couldn't wait till our kids became teenagers. Now, we probably rued the day we said that when our teens actually did appear, and we struggled like everybody else. But I love teenagers. I just, I love other people's teenagers more. But that's joking. I love talking about this because it's such a vital time in a family's life. It is crucial to get the launching phase right. And even saying that, I believe, is a challenge to the common ways of thinking, because unfortunately, most of us do not think about teenagers as launching adults. We think of them as older kids. And that's part of the problem. And so much of what we're going to talk about today in answering the questions, you're going to hear a common theme is what happens when you change your mindset that these are not kids anymore. These are launching adults. And the launching phase starts long before 18 or 20. The launching phase starts 11, 12, 13, when we begin changing our mindset about how we see them and how we parent them, and how we change our focus from concentrating on the trail that they're leaving behind instead of the path that they are forging ahead. So with that in mind, you guys have sent in a number of questions already, but you can always send in questions to us directly for the next hour. And Sarah is going to, as always, read the questions to us as they come in, and let's go.
Hey everybody, welcome. And I'm also very excited that you're here. And I want to tell you a little bit about how to send in your questions. So if you notice at the bottom, you'll see a Q&A section as well as a chat section. So make sure that you are clicking on chat. Make sure you're clicking on Q&A to send in your questions, okay? So let's go ahead and we'll start first with a question from Melissa. So she's got a little bit of a complicated question here, Hal, but it is, right. I stay patient and not scream and quietly honor my 13-year-old son's trauma responses when he learns I've made the long-needed decision to move us out of our home into a town 10 minutes away. So apparently there's an ex-husband who was abusive. She's trying to get him away, she and her son away from this guy, and yet her son obviously still loves his dad. So how do I honor his view of his father and remain patient with his anger while also taking the very difficult step to remove me and us from his father's toxicity, which reaches across the entire town?
Okay, well, that's a very, very difficult situation. And I'm going to be very, very strong with this, is you cannot depend on an answer from me on a webinar to help you with that. I cannot recommend strongly enough that you begin to work directly with a professional and help you walk through that. That is an incredibly difficult situation. And your teenager is tossed to and fro by so many conflicting emotions, as you are. And it's so complicated because ultimately you do want your kid to have great relationships with the other parent, because life goes better when you do. Now, if the other parent's demonstrating that they're incapable of having those great relationships, that brings a situation similar like this, and that's why you need a professional. So I hesitate to even give a quick answer other than that, is seek out in your town a professional. Call churches and ask who they would talk to. Call social services and say who you talk to. That's just something you need a professional working with you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Hal. Okay, Patty also has a question, and I'm just going to summarize it. She basically says that her kids, whenever they are bored, whenever there's a lull in dinner or they're at a sporting event before and after, they're in the car, whatever, they immediately turn to their phones. So how, even though they've set boundaries in place within their family, how do they encourage others to, or their kids to focus on the relationship that's in front of them rather than on their phone?
Then you say it's time to put down your phone. Then you say we're not going to have phones. And just make phone-free zones. Dinner, phone free. Make a basket, decorate it. Have everybody contribute to the decoration. Make it a wonderful little thing. It is a phone basket, and everyone goes in. I've even seen teenagers do this, and my son says they do it when they go out and as a group. They'll just say, "All right, everybody's phones," right? And it kind of becomes this trend, and I'm seeing that develop. There is this small but growing backlash against the power of social media to distract us from the reality in front of us. And so here's the main thing is don't get mad. Don't get mad because you've done it too. And the reason why is because we are dealing with an addiction delivery device. I remember when, I forgot his name, but the whistleblower on the tobacco industry, and he was on 60 Minutes, and he said, look, cigarettes are designed to be the perfect nicotine delivery device, which is addictive. So we're trying to make it more and more addictive. That's what every software engineer is trying to do, both with the design of the phone and the design of all the apps on the phone. Let's make it as addictive as possible because that's how they get paid. That's how they make money. That's how their shareholders get value. And that's how the economy continues to grow. It's all justified by us doing this. And with that in mind, you realize it's not a fair fight at all. And so, especially not for a 13-year-old or a 15-year-old, we think because they can navigate the technology so easily that they can manage its effects on their lives and on their brains, and they cannot, especially when we're struggling with the exact same thing. So make clear times where there are no technology possible. I mean, I'm writing a whole book on this right now, and so I'm steeped in the research. And one that really shook me recently was it was the University of Chicago and some other university was doing a thing about how if you even have your phone in sight, then it diminishes your cognitive ability. That if you have your phone anywhere around you, your ability to concentrate and actually come up with a good computation in your mind and use your brain well is diminished just by having it in sight. That's the power that this thing, it can be turned over and 10 feet away, but if you have it in sight, your brain is there. So I'm becoming more and more curmudgeon-like on this and saying we have to intervene. I'm going to sound like an old guy. I did not do this, with my family because we're just now learning, I think, more and more the power of the research. So put it away and don't be mad about it though. Just kind of recognize, hey, it's got power over them. Let's put it away and let's be with each other. And it's not going to go perfectly. But of course, the main thing you got to do is never expect them to manage this distraction delivery device any better than you do.
Mm-hmm. It always starts with that, doesn't it? With setting the example. And that is convicting when you see your own kids doing it as much or more than you, because you know where it needs to start, for sure. Okay, John has a question, and his is this. My daughter is about to be 12, but has been a teenager for almost 4 years now. One of the things we struggle with is that she more often than not expresses most things. Hang on, that just shifted on me. Responses to us, reactions to things that are going on in a very negative way. How do we help her avoid having a negative outlook on almost everything?
Well, you are dealing with a teenage girl who is at the mercy of hormones that are changing her body. And like we joke around here, she's going through the feline transformation, that she's becoming a cat. Like all girls become cats. They were wonderful little puppy dogs, happy to see us and always excited and thrilled, daddy, right? And then suddenly the feline transformation, and she is a cat. And some of you have heard this story before, but I was slow to this, even though I'm, quote unquote, the expert, and came home one time. My daughter was 12 and I wanted to catch her before she went to bed. I'd been gone on a trip. And wife said she had just gone to bed. So I'm tiptoeing into her bedroom and I'm leaning down to kiss her goodnight. And she starts up, "What are you doing?" Like, I was trying to kiss you goodnight. Why? I'm starting to wonder myself. And I should have been excited that she was, noticing a grown man in her bedroom. I should have been excited and pleased that she's reacting to that, responding to that in a good way. But I was slow, and you can't fault them for this, but you can help them, which is what I hear in your question. How can I help them? And one of the things is, first of all, never get reactive to it. And that is the hardest thing in the world. We get reactive to it and we think, oh my God, the life that we provided them is so amazing. And they are so negative all the time. And they're not grateful at all. And why am I doing this? And then she says she hates me, blah, blah, blah. And we take it all personally, and it's not personal. It is personal to her because it's a reflection of what's going on inside her. And you know what? It's harder than it ever has been, I believe, because all teenagers are on a stage. They feel like they're on a stage being watched at all times. Well, now that stage has expanded beyond their school to the 2 billion people on Facebook. That social media means they're constantly on a stage and they're thinking about it constantly. And because of that comparison trap that they're getting into, which is happens to be the thing I'm writing about this week. It's one of the 7 deadly sins, I think, of the 21st century is this comparison. And we're doing it so much with the swipe of a finger over and over. We're comparing ourselves. And as you do that, you will eventually compare yourself to someone you find to be superior to you and someone whose life is superior to yours. And by comparison, you feel inferior. And that just shades all of the negativity that a teenager can be naturally drawn to because life is difficult. We don't want to make life harder for them by taking it personally. It's interesting. You said she's been a teenager for 4 years. And that's funny. What we're saying by that, though, is that she's been a cat, that she's just been different than who she was. And think about this. A teenager's job is to differentiate themselves from us. That's our teenager's job. And differentiate doesn't mean just be different. It also means find out what they are going to continue forward, how alike they are going to be to us, and how different they're going to be from us. And that's their job, to figure out what to individuate from and what to conform to. And that's why, we make it easy when we're demanding that they be a certain way, so they rebel against us and they conform to their peers. That's the natural way it goes, but it doesn't have to be that way if we don't make it easy on them to rebel against us by demanding that they behave in a certain way. So partner with them. She says something negative. Hey, that sounded pretty negative. That sounded pretty negative. Do you feel that way a lot? You hear that instead of, would you just be grateful? No, partner with them. Don't oppose them. Do the judo maneuver that we talk about in Scream Free Parenting, where you turn and you're shoulder to shoulder with them. Wow, that sounded really negative. Do you feel that way a lot? Is this one of those times when it's just really hard to be 12? Tell me more about that. I want to be your champion as you continue to grow and develop your own ways of doing life. That's what I want. I don't want to possess you. I don't want to control you. I want to champion you and help steer you to be the best you can be. And so I'm going to take some empathy steps by saying, tell me what that's like. And you can even make a directive step could be, so what's a more positive way you could put that? Right? So that sounds pretty negative. Are you really that unhappy? Because if so, I'd love to know, because I'm always going to be concerned about that. And I want you to feel great. And I realize I only have so much power in that, but I would love to hear more. So go back to the one, some of you heard this. This is my own personal pause button in parenting, was always, tell me more. So they say something negative. Oh, this sucks. Tell me more about that. Now, is this what I'm feeling? No, it's not what I'm feeling on the inside, because I'm feeling that they're ungrateful, right? And why did I sign up for this? And man, my life is worse than yours. Well, but I can't lead with that. I can't lead with that. Not if I want them to actually grow up into being the best version of themselves.
I think judo parenting is probably one of my favorite principles of screen-free parenting. I think it's so helpful in so many different arenas. Yeah. To view your child not as the problem, but see the problem as the problem.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, it's been really helpful for me personally. So I love that one. Okay, Julie has a question. I have a 14-year-old who will hide out in her room and remove herself from the rest of the family. How much do I try to get her out of her room and involved with the family?
Well, you said you have a 14-year-old who removes herself and puts her in a room, right? And removes herself from the family, which just means you have a 14-year-old, which is what they do, because again, they are trying to differentiate themselves from us. And that's why we give them a room, so they can have a place to go. It's also why we invite them out of the room. It's why we say certain rules, that don't take the room away from them. Don't try to pull them out all the time. But one of the things is we said no screens behind closed doors until your senior year in high school. And that was very, very helpful, so that we walk by if they're using screens, which means their door is always going to be open for the most part, except when they're changing. But just say, hey, no screens behind closed doors. And it's okay if you go up there, but we're going to invite you. One of the things, and my wife and I always tried to ask older adults. And so it was a combination of my training and my experience and all the conversations and everything in our team was developing with talking with older folks who've paved the path before us. And it was really helpful to think, you know what, don't barge in. Don't barge into their life and demand that they be a part of yours, but don't stop knocking. So invite and tell them ahead of time, not immediately, you're coming down and you're going to eat dinner with us right now. Tell them ahead of time. Treat them with respect that they have a schedule that is getting more and more difficult. And it's getting more difficult before they're developing all the tools to handle that difficulty. And so it's like adding more weight to the bar before they fully have done it, which is the only way you actually grow stronger. You got to add a little more weight. Well, life is adding more weight in terms of the requirements for school is getting more and more difficult, and their schedule, if they have a job or if they have a babysitting job or something, or they got to take care of their own kids, or they got more chores that you're putting on them. All this is making their life more difficult, and they don't have the experience or skills to handle it. So let's have some understanding about that and let them know ahead of time. Hey, just letting you know, dinner is a family tonight. And it doesn't have to be every night. Right? But it does, dinner as a family tonight. Hey, we're all playing a game together tonight. Doesn't have to be long, right? But we're spending an hour together, or we're going to watch a show together tonight, and let them know ahead of time. And then if it really does be a concern, don't throw a fit right then and there, and you can't keep going into your room. You don't, blah, blah, blah. Raise it up the next day. Calm yourself down. Then the next day, right? Hey, I want to talk to you about something that I get it. You need some time to yourself. I get it. You're spending a little too much more time in your room than we think is actually good and that we'd like. And so we're going to be asking you more and more to spend some time with us. And we're going to be doing things like, hey, it's time to turn in your phone. That some nights you need to get off your phone earlier than others. But this is just all done because we love you and we want the best for you, but we don't want you to feel forced to be with us, but we do want you to be with us.
Yeah, I think emphasizing the relationship with your kid is super important. And I like what you say too about either having a game night or a TV show. I know with my two teens who are still at home, we have a show, Survivor, that we all four love to watch. So, when it's Survivor night, even if we can't always watch it together, maybe we watch the replay of it or whatever. Right. But, having something fun that brings them down. But also, when you have that talk with them, not saying we don't want you to be in your room all the time, but I want to hang out with you. I like you, and I genuinely want to hang out with you. That's important to me. So trying to make your own self likable, that they want to hang out, and, you're not just harping on them all the time.
I think that's excellent. Absolutely. And it's something we say in the new version of the Screen-Free Parenting book in the new chapter in the back, but that always, always, always relationships are more powerful than rules.
Absolutely.
Always. The greatest influence you have is the relationship you have with them, not the rules you have over them. Because the more you emphasize rules, the less you will actually have a relationship with them. And it'll be based only on your positional authority, which you've got to think about. our positional authority is the exact thing that is diminishing every year of their adolescence. It is necessarily diminishing. Our anxiety says we need to increase our positional authority over them every year because their choices are so much more, have so much more potential to wreck their lives. And so we need to take a more dominant step. But that's the exact opposite of what's naturally happening. What's naturally happening is every year they're getting more and more responsible for more and more of their life. And that means their positional authority over themselves is beginning to eclipse our positional authority over them. So when we, brace up and take more positional authority over them, just recognize every time you use your positional authority, you actually lose a little bit of that positional authority. Ironically, it's a paradox, but every time you step in and use that positional authority, you actually increase their desire for their own positional authority. And so, like everything we say with Scream Free, when you get reactive, in whatever way you get reactive, you actually create more of the outcome you were hoping to avoid. So if you step in with a heavy hand, just know that your hand actually, ironically, is getting less heavy in their life every time you do that, but in a bad way. And they're going to naturally rebel against it rather than grow up underneath your positional authority to begin emphasizing this relationship that you have with them, which is what you want to last for the rest of your life. You do not want to have positional authority over them the rest of your life, because why would you? That just sounds exhausting. Thinking I've still got to make decisions for them the rest of their lives. Good Lord, no. You want to launch them to where you can rest easy knowing that they are capable of making decisions and taking responsibility for all of their lives and not blaming anybody else or me, right? That's the only way they're going to be financially independent, self-sufficient. That's the only way they're going to excel in their careers, the only way they're going to pursue their own dreams and not try and match up our expectations for them. Good God, we don't want that. We want them pursuing their own dreams, taking full responsibility over their lives. And so let's emphasize that relationship. I love how you said that, Sarah.
And the more that we work on that relationship, interestingly, the more likely they are to listen to us as an authority in their life or as an influence in their life. Because they trust us and they love us. But I know for me, the more I dig in my heels over some issue, the more my 17-year-old son digs in his heels. And it doesn't get anywhere.
No.
So, yeah, the relationship ultimately and finding those things in common, pursuing the fun together, really in the end, gives us more authority in their life, interestingly enough.
Exactly right, because it's releasing control and gaining influence.
Yes.
And there's a paradoxical relationship between those two. And the metaphor I love best is teaching a kid to drive. Because that is the perfect description of parenting a teenager, because you recognize, because of their increasing authority over their own lives and more responsibility, they have the ability, like a child that you were riding in the passenger seat with, they have the ability to wreck our whole lives with the choices that they make. They have that power. And unless we don't want them to grow anymore and we want to stunt their growth, they're going to have that power and it's going to increase. So what do I want to do? Because if I give into my anxiety and try and take control, it's as stupid as wrestling the steering wheel out of their hands, which actually just increases the chances that we'll crash. So what does my job need to be? First, I need to give up control, because you know what? You don't have any anyways. Two, what does my temperament need to be if I want to be influential? And I do, as we're driving along the road. Well, of course, I got to be calm. First and foremost, I got to be calm. Is this easy? Good Lord, no. Have you taught a kid to drive? It's unbelievable, right? It's difficult, but you got to think. There's going to be a time when I'm going to be watching this kid pull out of the driveway by themselves. And that literally is pulling out of the driveway. That's also metaphorically as they're going on a date. And you recognize they could create a baby tonight. That really could happen. So I just need to embrace that reality that they could do that and stop thinking, no, they wouldn't. Do you remember your hormones at 16 or 17 or 14 or whatever? They are physically capable. They could do it. They could contract a disease. They tonight could get incredibly drunk and drive, even if they don't have a license. That could happen every time they go out. There's a possibilities. Now, I know some of you with a 13-year-old are now freaking out and just want to close the computer and go.
Thanks, Al.
Yeah, exactly. Go in a fetal position in the corner and rock yourself. I get it, right? But as I guess so, I don't know who it was. Was it James Dobson who had that book years ago? Parenting Isn't for Cowards.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you think about him, that's a great title.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not, and parenting teenagers. It's just, so can we brace for this? Yes. And the way to do it is calmly, shoulder to shoulder, like you're in a car with them, helping them begin to steer their own life.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Okay, we got more questions here. Jay is asking, how do you deal with a 15-year-old son who you've supported in every way you know how in his academic and athletic pursuits, but he doesn't seem to show any appreciation or gratitude and seems to see me, the dad, as the enemy because I seek to hold him accountable?
You are in the midst of a transition where you have been supportive of those pursuits. And when he has shown a very natural waning in his pursuit of those pursuits, then the very natural thing is to, in the name of being supportive, we step up and become pushy. And we call it holding them accountable. And we're all guilty of this. I certainly was with both my kids. But that's not actually what we're doing. Because the reality is they didn't ask us to hold them accountable. We think it's our job to hold them accountable, but they didn't ask us. So when we step up and say, I'm holding you accountable, we run the risk of, like you said, becoming the enemy in their eyes. Here's the tricky thing, the difficult thing is recognizing that past 13, they have to own their sports more than ever before. And that includes own their motivation for those sports. I think I saw a stat that 80% of kids who quit sports quit at the age of 13. It's something like that. And Sarah, I think you and I have talked about this as well. But if one of the things we think, well, we get in this deal where, let's just take sports, for instance, and we'll talk about academics in a second, but we get in this thing with sports where they've got so much talent and so much potential, and I don't want to see them waste this. But here's what we don't account for. Size, strength, talent, hand-eye coordination, right? All of those are skills. And there's another one that has to be there if they're going to truly excel, and that's passion. And if they don't have the passion, then it doesn't matter what the other skills are. It doesn't matter at all. If they don't love it, then they're not going to practice as much as their skills actually demand if they're going to excel, because every year is going to get harder. And if they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. And the last thing we can do is push them into it, because then their passion stops being what was in front of them, the sports in front of them. Their passion becomes resisting the pressure that we're putting on from behind. And I used to do this on stage. I should probably do it because we used to do this. I'd bring a volunteer up and they'd be walking in a certain direction, right? So they're walking in this direction and then I walk behind them. So this is your kid walking in direction. Let's say it's sports. He's doing really well, really well. He's playing, right, football a lot and he's going to camps in the summer and he's getting bigger, blah, 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 blah. And then, you know what? It gets harder. He gets interested in girls. School gets harder and he's not as interested as he was. So that pace that he was at and excelling slows down. And we come right behind him and push. Well, basic physics. What's the first direction that the kid moves when we push them from behind? Well, it's not forward, because basic physics, when we push them from behind, they go back against us. And I see that happen all the time with sports especially, but I see it with academics just as much. It's this, they're excelling, and now, you know what, they're not, and they don't have as much passion for it. Now, here's the difference between sports. Sports is a voluntary thing, and academics for us was not a voluntary thing. Now, we always said you had to participate in something athletic or artistic something extracurricular, but that was until they were about 15 or 16, they started getting jobs and other things came into play. But academics was you got to do this. But I can't make you love it. And the second I try to, I'm going to get that resistance as well. And this is where that shoulder to shoulder metaphor takes over as well. Judo takes over. I've got to come along beside them and put my arm around them and say, man, you really loved this a lot. Yeah, at one time you even loved going to practice a lot. I noticed you're not anymore. You still love it? You know, is there something else you want to pursue? And I know this may sound crazy given all the thousands of dollars you've put into all the camps and the travel weekends and blah, blah, blah. But for whose benefit was that? And if we're honest, so much of it is ours. We love watching our kids excel. I know Sarah and I have talked about this a million times with two athletic kids growing up, and it's so easy to lose perspective and think, you know what, it's got to be their dream. It cannot be ours. So put my arm around them and say, so tell me what's going on, right? And say this, is dad pushing you too much? And then be silent and let them tell you the truth. Is dad pushing you too much? Now that's the athletics conversation. The academics conversation is hey, school's getting harder, isn't it? Do you hear that move right there? Even that little sentence right there. School's getting harder, isn't it? That move is, I respect that you are going through something that I cannot be fully aware of. And so I'm asking out of curiosity for confirmation of what I'm suspecting, that school's getting harder, right? School's getting harder. So tell me more about that. Tell me what's the hardest subject. That's another great question. What's the hardest part about this, right? And be prepared. They may say the hardest part is that you're constantly on me all the time. And again, you're going to be tempted to react. Well, yeah, because this is good. And I know you have the potential. Oh, I want you to rid your lives of that word potential, because it does not spur them to try and meet that potential. Here's the problem with potential is you're always less than. Always. When you're full of potential, you're less than what you could be. Because if you match that potential, well, you're not excelling, you're just doing what we always thought you would be doing anyways. And so you get no credit for it, you know? And that's just deadening. It is deadening to the kid. So just rid it. If you just apply yourself, list on one hand how many times that conversation has ever worked on you, right? If you would just apply, okay, I'm going to. No, what you're saying is if you would just meet my expectations. And we've heard that lie. Kids will rise to the level of expectations you put upon them. I don't want them meeting my expectations. I want them pursuing their own dreams, their own goals from within. I see parents with unmotivated 15-year-olds, right? They're just unmotivated, right? No, they're very, very motivated. They are very, very motivated to resist your efforts to motivate them.
And you know what, speak a little bit more about motivation, Hal, because there's several questions that have come in about that very thing. Their kid,
great,
you know, parents writing in saying their kid hates school, or they just don't give a rip about doing anything. They at first show an interest, but then can't follow through.
Yeah. And here's an uncomfortable truth that doesn't get said enough, but all motivation is self-motivation, period. You cannot motivate another person. You can lay out incentives for them, but you cannot reach into their DNA and turn a switch and make them suddenly motivated. And also, you know what, their motivation, their level of motivation, it's interesting. What we say is motivation, not a lack of motivation. They're not motivated the way we want them to be, or we think they should be. And so we think it's our job to push them. You can't. You will end up pushing a rope. And some of you are in that situation. And the hardest thing to recognize is how you helped create it. Not saying they're innocent by any means, right? But we're not focused on what they're doing. We're focused on what can I do differently to get some form of different result, right? So biggest thing is stop pushing. Stop pushing. And then stop rewarding. Stop incentivizing. Stop doing it. It's amazing. We push them from behind like they're a stubborn donkey. We put a carrot on a stick in front of them like they're a stubborn donkey, and then we are shocked when they act like a jackass. That's because we've treated them that way. instead of having some really, really difficult conversations with ourselves, what happened? When did I care more about their school than they did? And they are actually going to try and do that. They're going to try, as school gets more difficult, they're going to take this hot potato of responsibility and try and put it on us. Because then, if we're the ones taking responsibility for their schoolwork, then they don't have to, and then they can blame us as being pushy, and we'll take it, and it's our job. We gotta motivate them. We've bought that line, hook, line, and sinker. It's a difficult dynamic. There is a way out of it, and it's the shoulder-to-shoulder relationship. I'm saying, hey, I mean, and take them out. Right? I love getting out of the house just one-on-one. This is not just like teaching a kid to drive. You cannot have two adults in the car at the same time. It does not work, because the one adult in the back seat is going to feel even more anxious than the one less in control, and they're going to freak out and throw out stuff. So don't do it. One-on-one. Take them out. Hey, you, me, let's go Wendy's today. French fries, Coke, whatever. Eat terrible food. That's great. And shoulder to shoulder. Tell me what's going on in school. Tell me what's going on. You used to love it, but I'm guessing it's gotten a lot harder. And when they say I hate school, what they're saying is I don't feel capable of doing all that's demanded of me. And instead of saying I feel scared that I can't cope, it's easier to say I hate it and blame everybody else. That's what they're doing. So get curious about why it's more difficult. Get curious about how scared they may feel. Because it might not just be academics, it may be the social stuff that's happening in school as well. All of this is so difficult to manage, and more difficult than it ever has been, I think. And that could be a great message. You know what? School is tough for me. Get along with folks and understanding where I fit in, kind of in the social status sphere, if you will. But I didn't have Instagram. I didn't have a bigger stage like this. Tell me what that's like. It's a small step of extending respect for the fact that they are having a more difficult time than we think they should. And that's the problem. I still belong to this dad's group. And it was all dads whose kids go to the same school. And we would meet, and we still do meet on Friday mornings and talk. And one of the guys used to say around this time of year, now remember, it's finals time, so your kids are really stressed. Well, they think they're really under a lot of stress. And it was this, he was trying to kind of connect with these dads and say, our lives are really stressful. But that doesn't help when you are minimizing the stress that they're under. Because think about it, their life is just as stressful, if not more, because they also have to deal with these oppressive expectations from their parents. And they don't have the experience or the skills yet to manage all of that. So they're having to deal with just as much, if not more. I will tell you, my son's schedule is busier than mine right now. He's got a company he owns, and he's working, he's got another job, and he's got AP classes, and he's navigating all the social stuff. It's a more stressful schedule than mine is. And he doesn't have the decades of experience. And he's still dealing with the residue of his dad pushing him and living vicariously through him and all that crap. So take a measure of respect and get curious. What's going on in school?
And you know how I think as I'm listening to you, if I'm a teen and my parents have been pressuring me and why aren't you more motivated? Why aren't you more motivated? And yet suddenly they start saying, hey, let's go hang out. What's really going on? I might be really skeptical. And so going back to the parent, what I would say is start with an apology. I know you talk all the time about being willing to apologize to our kids. And I think that's really important, especially if you start to realize that you've been putting a lot of pressure on your kids, academically, athletically, whatever. And now they're no longer motivated. Start with that apology. I realize I've kind of screwed up here and I want to try to start over. I know it's not possible, but I want to back up a little bit and tell me about your experience. That goes a long ways too, towards issuing that respect and showing that you respect their feelings and their perspective on all of this, and that you really do want to hear from them. So,
and make it not a heavy conversation. There's a guy who works with teens in schools named Josh Shipp, and I really like him a lot. And he has this great deal with when you're going to have a conversation with your kids. Couple things. don't make eye contact, which is something we've preached for a long time in Scream Free. And everybody's like, that's weird. Well, coming from an authority figure, it's intimidating. So don't do that, and do it very rarely. So don't do it as like this intense tell me, you know. Also, let them know kind of a mile marker is the metaphor he uses. Here's how long this conversation is going to take. Yeah. Just let them know ahead of time. And then name the elephant in the room with the first line of the conversation. You sit down and say, hey, I want to talk about your school. Just name it out there. I want to talk about stuff. And then when you follow that up, because right when you say that, their heart's going to, oh. But if you follow it up with what Sarah just said, I want to first apologize that I have taken too much responsibility for getting you motivated for school. And I guess I just realized that's not my job, and I've done a lot more harm than good. And you deserve better from me. So I want to begin, starting over. Like you said, I know that's not possible, but you know what? We can only start from where we're at. And I want to start with a different perspective. Recognize this is your school and it's not mine. And I don't know what it's like for you. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it's like for you. And then one of the main things is I don't know what it's like for you to be my kid, right? To be my daughter. I don't know what that's like. I don't know what it's like to be my son. And I really want to know. I really want to know because I want to help however I can.
Okay, I want to move along because we've got several more questions I really want to try to squeeze in here. And here's one for you from Wendy. If a teen is a bit socially awkward or socially anxious and he feels more comfortable and safe and in control on screens, how do you get your teen out there in more social settings beyond just limiting screens when that's not his comfort zone to begin with?
That is tough. I was confirmed again by watching some of the testimony by Zuckerberg last week that in so many ways, I believe the explosion of social media and the internet is hand in hand with the difficulties of growing up socially as a teenager. I remember early line of his, I want to replicate the entire social experience of college online. Why? Because it gives you something to hide behind. And that's what you're tempted to do, especially if what you're hiding behind is a prettier version of yourself. And so putting yourself out there face to face means I'm not hiding and I don't have a mask, and that's scary, and it's just getting scarier because ironically, everyone's online masks are getting more and more perfect, which makes it harder and harder to actually reveal who we really are behind that mask. And so in the name of addressing our social awkwardness by giving us an opportunity to connect without having to be face-to-face, we're actually making it even harder to be face-to-face. And I'm harping on this because this is what I'm writing about right now, I'm thinking about right now, but it brings up questions like these. And you're wondering, how do I force my kid? You know what? Here's one way. Is tell them, and a family I know did this recently, and it was pretty cool. So a lot of kids playing video games online. And one of the things they do, like they're playing Fortnite, right? Everybody's playing it. They're connecting via headsets to other people and connecting socially that way. Well, you can begin to say, look, you can't do that by yourself every day when you play it. You got to have somebody over with you. And I thought it was really creative. So invite one friend over. So the two of you are side by side. So you're face to face with someone while you're connected to other people as well. And so it's kind of a gentle expanding of this. You are face to face with one, but you are connected virtually with others. And I thought that was kind of cool. The other thing is just make your house the place where all the kids want to be, any friend at all, and encourage it. Invite friends over, right? Even get to know, this is something we did, and it's awkward, I get it, but get to know the family and invite the whole family over. We're going to do dinner. We're going to do it out the fire pit and roast marshmallows, right? And we're going to get to know. And that's a way to make it less awkward than I'm taking you to the dance, like they did that kid in 16 Candles, where he's like, I just want to be with you guys. And they're holding the door, right? And he just wants to leave the dance. All right, that's just funny. I think about it. But it was because that's what we thought. So what I got to do is just put them out there and they're going to learn to swim, or they're going to get it even more awkward and rejected, and it's going to be even more painful. So inviting people over, I think, is a good first step. So find creative ways to invite them over, even if that means they're going to play a game side by side.
Awesome. Great idea. I love that. Okay, I want to cover a couple more topics that we haven't talked about today. And this one is from Jamie. And as a parent, what guidance do you offer teens during the first breakup from a serious relationship?
Wow.
When you see a teen in what you would consider an unhealthy relationship, how would you guide them?
Okay. Those are two different questions, because if they're in a breakup and you didn't like the relationship, then you got to pause to not celebrate right in front of them. You got to be careful about that. Usually they're going to be, surrounded by friends. It depends. It's greatly different between girls and guys. And girls are maybe going to have their friends over, and I'm being totally stereotypical here, but I think my daughter did this the first time breakup, and girls came over and she had ice cream. And what was amazing is, and this is a testimony to the relationship that I worked really, really hard to build with my daughter. When I came home from work that day, she said, Daddy, come sit next to me. And she was like 16 or so. This is 5 years ago. And she wanted to sit next to her daddy and sit in my lap and eat ice cream. And then I didn't really say anything. I just said, I love you. That's it. Right. And we watched something together with her friends, and that was great. And that's the biggest thing. It's just, I'm here, and don't make commentary on it. Don't try and make them feel better. And that's something we learn when we become therapists and counselors. Is it's not your job to make somebody feel better, because what you end up doing is trying to talk them out of a feeling, which paradoxically reinforces the feeling. Because what we're actually conveying is, I have anxiety about you feeling this right now, so you need to calm my anxiety by feeling differently. And it's in the name of being a servant, you're actually being very, very selfish. And we don't even understand this. This is something that I think needs to be taught more and more, is you don't talk people out of feelings. You don't try and make them feel better and say, well, you could think about this. And no, man, that stinks. This sucks. God. That's it. I'm sorry. That's it. Walk alongside them. That's it. Now, if they're in a relationship you don't like, then you are in a difficult situation. I will say, the one thing I think I have prayed more about in terms of my kids, and I'm starting to even more now they're 21 and 19, is their mate selection. The idea of them getting married to somebody that I think is really bad for them is terrifying. It is terrifying me. Oh my gosh. So you're in a difficult situation. If they're dating somebody in high school, where you realize they're not going to get married. But if you think it's a toxic relationship that's going to hurt them, then say that. I think you are in a toxic relationship, and I think you're going to get hurt in a bad way. And I'm not sure exactly what to do about this. That's a very frank way to say it, if you really believe it that strongly. And you hear my voice, how it's calm, but solid, stern. I think you are in a toxic relationship, and I think it's bad for you. And I am scared that you're going to get hurt in a very bad way. And I'm not sure what to do about it. I'm afraid that if I just say you cannot see him or you cannot see her, then it's just going to suddenly make them more attractive to you, just to spite me. And I don't want that. But I'm letting you know I don't know what to do about this, but I have to talk to you about it. I've got to tell you. Then again, start that. That's a starter to the conversation. And go back to what we were saying earlier. If you're going to have that conversation one-on-one, don't look them in the eye very, very strongly until you want to make that main point. Let them know how long this conversation is going to be. Look, I need to talk to you about something, and I think it's only going to take 10 minutes, unless you want it to go longer. And then elephant in the room. I have strong concerns about your relationship with him. I think you're in a toxic relationship, and I'm afraid you're going to get hurt very badly, and I'm not sure what to do about it. That is a very respect-filled way to do it. But it's also, you're stating very clearly, I love you, and I have a responsibility to you. And my main responsibility to you is to let you know exactly how I feel. Then if it's really, really toxic, right, then you got to do an intervention and say, like, we're not letting this happen, and prepare for it to get ugly, even involving the other kids' parents. Just say, look, I don't think these kids are good for each other, right? Because the reality is they're not kids. They are the burgeoning adults. And I think they're not good for each other and they're going to hurt each other somehow.
All right, Hal, we have got a bunch of questions left, but I'm going to just one, and I'm going to give you 1 minute to answer this one because I want to make sure that we have enough time to wrap up here at the end. Ellen has a question. Can you give suggestions of ways that a parent can help a 16-year-old boy to eat healthy?
Well, why would he want to eat healthy? What would be his reasoning for eating healthy? Does he want to gain weight or does he want to lose weight? Try and get to see what he wants. Because what we're doing when we eat unhealthy is we are neglecting or abandoning what we want most for what we want right now. That is the reason why we eat unhealthy. Because one of the things we want most is a body that functions really, really well. And if we're honest, a body that's attractive and we're not ashamed of. That's absolutely something most of us want most. But what I want right now is a whole plethora of cornucopia, that's a better metaphor, of things that are terrible for me because you know what? They're easier to eat and usually they're cheaper. And it's just right there. And there's pressure because everyone else around us is eating and all that stuff. And so we say yes to right now. And before we know it, we are not healthy. And some of this can be for a teenage boy that he's not as big as he wants to be. He wants to gain weight for sports or whatever. He's too skinny, right? And it's easier not to eat, more expensive to eat. So these are, again, conversations to have. And also recognize that it is possible. Eating disorders are nothing to joke about. They are a horrific, horrific disease, and they affect boys and girls as well. And it's just they're managing food in a way that is trying to fix emotions. And then soon it spirals on itself and they can't even see themselves in the mirror with the right lenses. They're it's called body dysmorphic disorder, where they actually see their bodies differently than they actually are. And that's terrible. I'm not saying that's what's happening right now, but recognize that when you're talking about food, tread lightly, but get to know them. Get to know them about what they want, right? So what are you looking to do? Are you looking to gain weight? Are you looking to lose weight? What to get what they want and help them establish and say out loud in their words what they want. And then you can begin to bring up their words to them later. Hey, you told me a while ago that what you really wanted was to build muscle. And now I see you eating this way, and I totally get that, but that's not going to help you build muscle. So is there stuff I could buy that would be differently? How could I help you? How can I help you reach your goals rather than you need to eat how I tell you to eat?
Awesome. All right. I would love for you, Hal, to share a little bit about Choose Your Own Adulthood.
Okay.
Just very briefly, just what,
Sure.
Maybe a minute or two, what it's about. And then I'm going to share a little bit more with them about what they can see from here on out.
Yes. Choose Your Own Adulthood. Let's see. Do I have a copy of the book? I don't know if I do. Somewhere around here. Hey, it's underneath this. So, earthquake. Sorry. Hold on. Oh my gosh. That's just dumb. There we go. So, Choose Your Own Adulthood. This is the book that I wrote first to my daughter. And it is such a personal book. And now a program on the Pause platform. It is so personal to me because it was not done in abstract. It was written directly to her. And I was thinking about nothing but her as she began this liftoff phase of the launching, and she went off to college. So I gave it to her when she was 18 and when I dropped her off at college. And it is short, it is brief, and it is full of the difficult choices that we make every day that actually shape our adulthood. Not the big choices like what we major in and where we go to college and what job we take. Those are absolutely important, but it's the little choices we make every day that actually shape our adulthood more than any other. And that's what I wanted her to think about. Choices like we just said, pursue more of what you want most and less of what you want right now. Choices like respond more and react less, because that's what adults do. Choices like risk more in pursuing what you want most, and you will regret less. And that doesn't mean taking stupid risks. It means taking risks that are worth taking. And there's so many, there's 16 of these choices in there. And we also talk a lot about perfectionism as well. And that's a choice you should never make. And I don't want to tempt you with that. So we turned it into a program on the Pause platform design. And there's two different versions right now. And there's one for high school kids, and then there's one for college kids. And again, it is incredibly personal to me because my daughter Hannah was the one who designed most of these programs. And she designed it with the high schooler in mind and designed it with the college student in mind. And it takes all of these choices. Again, so you get a book and it comes with the program. You read it as an ebook on the program, on the profile, sorry, on the platform. And it breaks it down into activities that you do that reinforces it, or just YouTube videos that reinforce it, funny things and little reflections. It breaks it down into little tiny minute to 5 minute size chunks. And high schools are starting to implement it for all their students. Colleges are starting to do it for theirs as well. It's kind of like a freshman orientation thing. I was just at a college and spoke 2 nights ago there about this. And it's just amazing to see the responsiveness that, man, you're talking to us, not talking down to us. You're talking to us about the real choices we're already making. And it feels like you're, empowering us to do that. I was just in Korea last week and spoke to a American high school in Korea, 250 students. And it just blows me away that we only had 50 books and they mobbed, this is like third time's happened when they mobbed the stage trying to get this, because it's respecting them as an adult and respecting the choices they're already making all day, every day, that are so hard and they're not fully equipped to make. And so we want to equip our kids to make the choices that make their adulthood. And that's why we're so excited about the Pause platform. It is easy, it is online, it is accessible, and it is exciting.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing. I want to continue that conversation because Hal mentioned a lot of the important aspects of this Pause platform program, Choose Your Own Adulthood. And we do, as he said, have both a high school and college version of this. So I want to show you a little bit about what it looks like. So I'm going to actually share my screen with you right now and show you the platform itself. So let's see here. So if we come in right here, you will see this is the main page that you start with. And I'm going to show you the high school version for now. But I want you to know this, that if your child is a senior in high school, then I would actually encourage you to get the college version because they would be graduating here pretty soon. So go ahead and get the college version for them. We also will have a workplace version for them real soon. So essentially, as Hal said, they will actually have the opportunity to read the entire book. It is embedded in the platform. So they don't even have, if they're looking at this on their phone, they don't even have to leave their phone, leave their computer to be able to read it. It's all right here, the entire book. Let me go down here. I want to show you, this is the level that Hal had mentioned, pursue more of what you want most and less of what you want right now. And you'll notice here, we also have videos. Hal didn't teach the material itself through video, but he did answer a bunch of questions that people have sent in about the different principles, about the different choices that we have. And so all those questions are on video right here under Ask the Expert. We also have, let me see, under level 2. Also, most of these are about 5 minutes. The videos are all less than that. All the different activities, they're pretty simple to complete. Let me show you one right here. This one's a mirror activity. And this one's pretty fun because this is all about learning how to respond rather than react. And so we talk about all the different ways we react by either out loud screaming, shutting down, neglecting our own appearance and just hiding out, calling our friends, venting, or even hyperventilating and freaking out. So what's cool is they're shown all these different ways that we can respond versus react. And then they have the opportunity to right here in the program itself, click on here and answer questions. So lots of self-reflective questions as well. So let me scroll down to another thing here, level 8. I'll show you, because as Hal mentioned too, we're all about fun. And so we have different pop culture videos. This one is all about produce more, consume less. And so this is a clip from Parks and Rec, and it's hysterical. It's all about these soda sizes and how they have 128 ounce, even a 500 and something ounce video. I don't really have time to, or cup, I don't really have time to show you right now, but we really have tried to incorporate a lot of fun so that while they are learning these great ideas and the different choices that they make, they're also having a lot of fun while they're at it. So if you are interested in purchasing this as a gift for your child, it makes a great graduation gift. And you can go to pauseplatform.com. You can actually sign up for a free trial. And so you get access to the first 2 levels of this course. And then we also have a monthly subscription or an annual subscription as well. So Pause Platform, again, is the address of where you need to go for that. So I want to let you guys know we are going to be having another webinar next month on May 16th, and it's going to be on parenting in the digital age. And so we'd love for you guys to join us. You'll be getting notified of that, and you'll be able to sign up for that as well. It'll be 1 o'clock Eastern on parenting in the digital age. So all things related to social media, phones, some of the stuff that we've been talking about today. So anyway, thank you for joining us. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of your questions, but really do appreciate you joining us today. Take care.
See ya.